Good morning. Welcome back to another episode of Morning Coffee with Kevin. I'm your host, Kevin Peterson. Hey, everybody. I am glad to be back. I'm sorry that I missed you last week. Like I had mentioned in past episodes, I currently have some medical issues that I'm dealing with, and it's really kind of slowed me down as far as being able to put the podcast out as often as I'd like to. And the month of April is definitely going to be trying for me. Actually, they have postponed my surgery, and I'm going to have to go in at a later date. But still, it threw me off schedule enough that I'm having issues with getting the show out this month once a week like I'm supposed to. As far as having anything really new for you, I am continuing to try to stay positive with everything going on, and I have been working on some new music projects, and we've got multiple CD releases coming up that I don't necessarily want to talk about in today's show, but I do have some CD releases that are going to be coming up later in the year, and I would definitely let everybody know when that's going to take place. Obviously, I'd like for everybody to come out and support us. And I've really talked a lot lately about how I want to diversify the podcast and change things up. And one of the things that I've wanted to do is I've wanted to get away from every topic, every episode being about the same subject, which is either film production with my film production company or music projects that also have to deal with my music company. Boring, I get it. And I do want to diversify and do things a little differently. So I've got a special episode for you today. It's definitely going to be longer than the normal episode, and that will kind of have to compensate for possibly not putting out a show the following Monday after this show airs. Like I said, I've got a lot of medical issues I'm dealing with, and it's really kind of slowing me down. And I just want to get this all over with, everybody. I just want to get this over with. I want to get feeling healthy. I want to get back on track, and I don't want to have to worry about this stuff. I want to do fun stuff, like making podcasts for you. So without any further delays, I want to get right into this. And today on the show, I said we're going to do things differently, and we are. Today, we're not going to talk about music. We're not going to talk about film production. We're not going to talk about the music industry. Today, we're going to talk with a woman by the name of Rosie, who has been homeless for the last couple years. She recently just got back on her feet. She's no longer on the streets, thank God. And she is going to tell us how everything going on in our world has affected her, how she ended up on the streets, how she got off the streets, and just tell a little bit about her story. Now, I've asked her not to be too personal about her comments because obviously I do want to keep her identity private, and I do not want any issues there. She has graciously accepted the offer to come on the show today. She's here in the studio with me, and I'm going to turn the mic over to her, and I'm going to let her kind of just explain her story, her backstory. She's going to tell you a little bit about herself, and just kind of enlighten us on what it's like to have to live on the streets and what it's like to have to make those kinds of decisions in your life. Because a lot of us are fortunate enough that we've never had to live that way, and hopefully we never do. But, I'm sure that Rosie never expected this to happen to her, and I'm sure a lot of a lot of other homeless people that you see on the streets every day never asked for this to happen. So I'm going to let her enlighten us and tell us a little bit about herself. So I'm just going to be quiet here for a minute, and I'm going to turn the mic over to Rosie and let her talk.
Hello, everybody. This is Rosie. Just a little story. Me becoming homeless and stuff. I was helping out family members when I had my place, and we got kicked out because of that reason. And that's how I end up out on the streets. And then I ended up staying with some friends and stuff. And we ended up moving to Missouri, and I was there for like a month and a half or so.
Hey, Rosie, can I stop you for a minute?
Uh huh.
You, when you became homeless, you didn't stay in California that whole time. You actually left California for Missouri.
Yes, I did. I left from California to Missouri. I was there for like a month and a half. I was staying in a tent. From my understanding was that the people I went with and stuff, they said there was a house there, but there wasn't.
So, so you got all the way to Missouri to find out there wasn't a roof over your head.
Correct. Yes.
Oh, wow.
And it started snowing there, and I couldn't figure out why it was so cold. And I had my little dog with me, and she's my support dog. And so it started snowing, and she started shivering, and I couldn't figure out why it was so cold. Like I said, it was snowing. And so I posted pictures on Facebook about it, and my one of my kids decided to come and get me and stuff. And then I started living with her for a little bit, and then um, I started after that for about 2 weeks. I started living with her in-laws. I was there about a year, and then I ended up having to be out on the streets again. So it wasn't very fun or anything.
So the same circumstances, you went to live with another family member and ended up back on the streets again. What happened in that situation?
The people there, because I wasn't able to pay rent, I was getting unemployment there for a little bit, and I was paying rent and everything. But when I was not getting unemployment, they decided to tell me that they were going to give me a month to see if I can get a job. If not, I would have to leave. So I ended up out on the streets again.
Wow. I mean that really had to have been devastating. Is this the first time in your life you've ever been homeless or had to live on the streets?
Yes, this is the very first time. I've always had a roof over my head, up until here recently and stuff. But living out on the streets is not very fun because you don't know when you're going to be able to get your food. You don't know when you're going to take a shower. You got to find somewhere to go to the bathroom and stuff. And then they decided to build a camp area for the homeless people.
So they built a camp for the homeless in the area where you were living?
Yes. They provided the tents. I believe they were 8 by 8 tents, and we ended up having to stay there. And then they started bringing out like a shower truck, I guess as you can call it. And then they started bringing out food for us, and like from the churches and stuff from the area.
Oh, okay. So the churches in the area were very involved as far as, helping the homeless get food. Did they help you with clothing or other needs, or was it mainly just food?
Some of the places were just basically food, and then some places brought out clothes for us. Main food truck that came out always had like some little bit of hygiene stuff, like baby wipes and stuff like that. Um, it just depends on if you have a dog, they normally have dog food for us and everything.
Wow, really? That's interesting. So they even help take care of your pets.
Yes, they always looked after our dogs and stuff out there. But even get in a situation like that and everything, you still don't know which way you're gonna go because you don't know if you're gonna be able to get out of the situation that you're in.
Right, right. I mean, and being that it was your first time being homeless, I mean, I can just, I've never been in that situation, so I can only imagine how devastating that would be, and how that would affect you. I mean, at some point, being out on the streets like that, did you feel as if you had just lost all hope and that things were never going to change?
Yeah, I did. The only way I was able to cope with things out there was it was like, like I tell everybody when they ask me, how is it out there? And I tell them, I say, the way I look at it is it's like, to me, it's like camping out because you had to figure out where everything was going to come from and how you're going to eat and everything like that.
So you pretty much kind of turned it into like a little game, and tried to be optimistic about it.
Yeah. 'Cause if I wouldn't think of it that way, I was getting depressed really bad. I was out on the streets for like almost 2 years, um, and stuff. So, but where I was at and everything, there was a lot of homeless people around, and you had to really watch your stuff and everything because people were stealing from each other out there.
I can imagine the dangers of being on the streets, especially being a woman and being on the streets, as far as, any kind of protection. How did you protect yourself? I mean, did you meet some decent people that were kind of had your back, or did you just take care of yourself, or how did that kind of play out?
Well, I had some people out there that I got to know really good, and they helped me keep an eye on my stuff if I left to go do like to appointments and stuff like that. But other than that, I really had to watch my stuff out there because I was afraid people were gonna steal my stuff because I had stuff stolen from me to begin with out there, and they had a charging station out there for us too, to where we could charge our phones and things like that. I had like two or three battery packs stolen from me. I've had lights, the camping lights stolen from me. I mean, I had quite a few things stolen from me out there.
Wow, that's crazy. So, I mean, I know that my some of my questions may seem um, kind of ignorant, maybe because I've never been in the situation. But when somebody did steal your stuff, did you bother to report it to the police, or is it just not even worth it because they won't even look into it?
It depends on what it was. Sometimes the police would come out there if things got stolen, but we had a lady that was there during the day that would take care of the campground and stuff, and we normally report things to her and stuff if something comes up missing or whatever.
Really? And then they would do their part to try to recover it for you?
Yes, they would try, but not all the time. Um, that they can recover anything.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just guessing, and I don't mean to, you know, uh, put the homeless into a category, but it, it would be my thinking, and I guess maybe I would think that way just because I've never been homeless. But it would seem to me that if they stole your stuff, it's probably because they wanted to sell it quickly and probably get money for drugs. I mean, would that be far off base to say that?
No, it wouldn't be off on base on that. There was a lot of people out there that does do drugs out there and stuff. There was quite a few people out there that would drink almost every night, even though they knew that right there in that area where we were at, that they wasn't allowed to do any of that kind of stuff.
Wow. Did you ever witness, um, and I say this very sensitively, if you want to talk about it, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine too. Did you ever witness any violence or any killings?
There was a lot of violence out there, but there wasn't no killings out there. There was, I mean, right there in front of my area where I was at, two guys were fighting right there. One of them ended up with bruised ribs and stuff like that. The other one, I'm not too sure with him and stuff, but the one guy I knew from out there, so and he was walking around with bruised ribs and stuff like that. But it was like almost every day that there was something going on out there. Um, I was getting to the point to where I was getting really depressed and I would basically cry, you know. I would, and I started to lose a lot of weight. My family thought I was doing drugs, and I wasn't. I mean, it was really hard out there, and people thinks it's easy, but it's not.
Yeah, and speaking of family, did did you have any support from your family? I mean, they obviously somebody in your family had to have known you were homeless. Nobody bothered to help take you off the streets?
Yes, I had a lot of support with my family, but a lot of my family didn't want me there because they always told me that they didn't have room because most of the time they would have their kids or boyfriends or husbands or whatever. So, I mean, I can't really get upset with them about it, but at the same time, I can because it was like they knew I was homeless and stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, they could have at least put you on the couch or something, right?
Yeah, they could have, but like I said, I can't, what do you call it? Get mad at them or anything like that because of it. It could be different reasons why, but my some of my families did check in with me like every day and stuff, but it was, and they were all wanting me off the streets, so they were all trying to figure out how to get me off the streets.
Wow. Well, getting back to how you got on the streets, initially, you said that you basically were living with family. You got kicked out. Um, what led up to you um, living with family? Was it because you were unemployed? And if so, did that have something to do with the uh, current uh, administration in government? I mean, because a lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of people have had to close their businesses. I mean, our show has never been a very political show, and I'm not necessarily wanting to go that direction, but I'm just curious if the modern society and the way things are in our society led up to you not being able to work. What happened there?
Um, well, like I said, I got kicked out from family, friends, places and stuff. And for jobs and stuff, I was always out looking for a job and everything. But a lot of places wanted like experience in stuff, and I didn't have the experience in it, so they wouldn't hire me for anything.
So
So
so you were basically just having difficulty finding work.
yes, I was.
Well, and a lot of my listeners know that I recently, and I say recently, within the last year and a half, I retired from a job that I was at for 35 years. And, you know, in the recent months, I've thought about going back to work part time. And I never would have thought it would have been difficult to find a part time job, but it actually has. So, I mean, I understand your frustration there. Um, so, exactly how long were you homeless? How long were you on the streets?
I was homeless for like I think like 2 years. I think. Um, there is programs out there though that does help homeless people to find places, but to me, they wasn't helping me at all. I've seen people come and go and stuff because of that reason. So I mean, it just varies who's doing what out there.
Really? So, you just kind of felt like some of the government organizations that are put in place to help homeless were not necessarily helping you in the manner you thought they should have been.
Yes, they were supposed to help us find a place, housing within 6 months, and I was out there for like 8 or 9 months, and they were still not finding me a place. But like I said, there was other people that was out there with me that was out there that long, and they found them a place like right away.
Wow, that's really unfortunate. So, I mean, the good thing is that I mean, this has obviously been a life experience for you, and I'm assuming that that's the streets is somewhere you probably never want to go again. And it, like I said before, it's awesome that you're now off the streets. So why did it take so long for you to get off the streets, and what were the circumstances that led to you being able to get off the streets?
Um, I had a friend that was coming out there to see me and stuff, and she went back home and told her family and stuff that her parents that she lived was living with, that I was homeless and stuff, and they heard she was telling them the things that I was going through, because she would stay out there with me like a night or two out there just to see how it is out there and
What
stuff.
it's like?
Yeah, what it's like out there and stuff. And every time she would call and check in with me or whatever, I would tell her what was going on and stuff. And she goes, "Really?" And I go, "Yeah, you just don't know what's going on from day to day out here."
Wow, that's crazy. So her parents allowed you to go stay with them, I take it.
Yes, I'm staying in a room by myself.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, I think that's awesome that they were able to, help you get off the streets. Do you look forward to possibly trying to find some work in the near future and getting your own place, or what are your plans for the future?
For the future, yes, I'm trying to look for a job. I did apply for Social Security because of my disability and things like that. I got a lot of health issues too myself, and um, once I get that taken care of and everything, I should be able to get a job or hopefully get my Social Security.
Right. Well, if you got your Social Security, that would, you would be able to have at least a little income.
Yeah, plan on getting my own place too once I get that.
Well, that sounds like a plan. Well, I usually don't run the show more than about 30 minutes, and I said we may go a little bit longer today, but we're right at about 30 minutes now. So I would like to just, thank you for, having the courage and being willing to come on the show and talk to myself and to my listeners about, your circumstances and situation. I guess I would like to end the show by asking you, is there is there anything that you would say or recommend to somebody who has recently ended up in the situation that you did, which is, homeless on the streets, maybe living in a camp, maybe just living, you know, behind the dumpster for that matter? I mean, is what would you say to somebody that has probably started to already lose faith?
Well, if they've already started losing faith in everything, I mean, like I said, like for me, I was losing faith in everything and a lot of things, and it was really hard. And for people that's out there that's homeless and stuff, I do feel sorry for all of them about it and everything because I know how it is out there, and it's really hard to get off the streets once you get there.
Wow. Well, let me ask you this because obviously, like I said before, I have never been there. And, you drive down the street every day and you see homeless people. And, you know, me, myself included, I am guilty of doing this too. And you just assume that somebody might be on drugs or somebody might be an alcoholic or, you know, or whatever the situation may be. But the reality is we know that not everybody who ends up on the streets, because obviously you weren't a drug addict, you weren't an alcoholic, but you still ended up on the streets due to circumstances. So we know that not everybody that's on the streets is a bad person. Not everybody on the streets is a drug addict. Some people, like you said, probably choose to stay on the streets. Others want to get off the streets like you. What would you say, just from your knowledge of being on the streets for a couple years, what would you say the percentage rate of people that, what is the percentage rate of people that actually are trying to get off the streets, that are just good people who fell on hard times, versus the percentage of people who are there because that's where they want to be? And when I say they want to be, I mean because they use drugs, they use alcohol, and they don't want to change their lives. What would you say the percentage rate of the people on the streets like that, what it balances out to?
Well, I would think it would be like 65% of people would want to get off the street, and the other part, for the ones that don't want to get off the streets.
Really? You think the percentage rate is that high? 65% of them really do want off the streets, and the rest of them are just there because that's the lifestyle they prefer to live.
Yeah, I really do.
Wow. I went to the grocery store the other day, and I saw a young man, probably in his 30s, and he was laying down on a piece of cardboard with some old newspaper over him to try to keep him warm, I'm assuming. And he looked like he was able to go to work and be productive. But you never know until you really meet somebody what their circumstances are. But he looked healthy. He looked like he hadn't been there long, and I really kind of felt bad for him. But it's really opened my eyes to look at things maybe a little bit different than I have in the past, and not be so hard on people, and and maybe even possibly at some point be able to help people out, because I do feel for the people who really do want to get off the streets. Again, I'm grateful. I'm very happy that you're now off the streets. I appreciate you coming on the show today, Rosie. If there's anything that any of our listeners could do to maybe help you, or to just help you out with maybe some funds or some food or anything to kind of support you and help you get back on your feet, would you prefer that they maybe contacted me and then I get in touch with you? I mean, I don't want to, give out your identity, and I'm really trying to keep that as private as possible, having you on the show.
Yeah, I'd rather that if anybody's going to do that for me, I'd rather them go through you and you can get a hold of me.
Okay. So is there, I mean, I know you've only been off the streets for a short time. And I know you are working right now, right? Part-time?
Part-time, yes.
Okay. So is there anything that you need? Is there anything that somebody could possibly help you with? Even the smallest thing that might really just be a big deal to you. Is there anything that the listeners might be able to help do for you?
Right now it's just because I'm a smoker, and I really don't have that much money coming in right now because I just barely started working. Like cigarettes, like hygiene stuff, things like that.
Okay, so hygiene products, possibly cigarettes. You do know those are bad for you, right?
Yeah, I know that, but right now, because of my stress level and everything, it keeps me going and stuff.
Well, we all have our vices, that is for sure. Well, again, I want to thank you for taking the time to sit down with me this morning and discuss your situation. I hope that this podcast is going to educate people and to kind of open their eyes to maybe thinking a different way. Because like I said, I have always been very guilty of going, oh, look at that lazy bum. Oh, look at that guy. He's probably doing drugs. Oh, look at her. She's probably a prostitute. And that's awful. That's an awful way to think. And I mean, the reality is that those people are out there. They do exist. But according to Rosie, the amount of people that are really good people that are really trying to get off the street could possibly be 65% of them. So that's a pretty high percentage rate of people that are just down on their luck because of whatever possibly happened to them. And, we should be a little bit more aware of this type of situation. And I know not everybody can help because, a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, I'm not living paycheck to paycheck, but I do have to be careful with my money. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. Rosie, again, I appreciate you being on the show. We're going to end the show for today. I'm going to try to be back next week with an all-new episode. I've got some CD releases I want to talk about, everybody. This has been a whole new direction for the show. I hope everybody liked it, and I'm hoping to talk to some other people that are in the same situation, possibly some people who are ex-gang members, maybe some people who are ex-prostitutes, and who have turned their lives around and really made a difference. And so we're not going to be doing these shows every week, but maybe once a month we're going to do a show like this. I'm not really sure at this point, folks, but I just want to say God bless you. You've been listening to Morning Coffee with Kevin. I'm your host, Kevin Peterson. Peace. We'll see you next week.